Look, I know you want better for yourself, and I can't blame you for that. I mean, everyone wants the best that they think they can get. So, I want to start by saying that there's a part of you that cannot even fathom, I think that's the word, cannot even imagine what is really out there for you like that because it's too good in comparison to the experiences you've had in the past. Does that make sense? Usually, what we think we deserve relates to our standards, what we feel like we deserve, what we think we deserve. And I want to start by telling you the difference between an expectation in comparison to a standard, so it's out of the way. An expectation is something that you want someone to do for you, and if they don't, you feel a certain way, you feel disappointed, you will take offense to it, you assume that someone will do something based on your interpretation of what they should do. So it's about them. An expectation is about the other person, whereas a standard is about you. And we'll get more into how to define your standards and what your standards are. If you're not sure, I can help you with that. But just to explain it shortly, a standard is a requirement. It's something that if it's not done, a certain part of you cannot feel comfortable, safe, happy, or maybe your standards, if they're not met, will mean that you just can't be there. So like in your work environment, the standard would be that you do your work. And the way you do it depends on the place you work at and their own guidelines and the way that they operate. But the standard is that you get the work done and that you submit it. And there is requirements for you to do that. So maybe it's having the right equipment, having a good communication team, being helped by other people. So you see what I'm saying, versus an expectation at work would be what is kind of like in that standard in a sense. So you're expected to be respectful, you're expected to be kind, you're expected to be communicative. And there's also like these false expectations where it could be, well, I expect everyone to do the work for me kind of thing. And there could also be poor expectations and poor standards. So maybe your workplace doesn't pay you enough, doesn't provide you the equipment. That would be a poor standard to operate in. And there could be poor expectations. So it's not just that you are expected to be kind and respectful, it's that you are expected to bring a coffee every day to everyone, dress a certain way. Let's bring in something ridiculous like compliment everybody every 10 minutes. That could be like an expectation. So like a standard is the foundation you work on, and the expectations are the added functionality in the standard. Okay? So it sounds complicated, but it's really not that complicated. I just honestly kind of overcomplicated a little bit. Let me bring you to a more simple way to see it. So let's say your work environment, the standard is that you have the proper equipment to work, or else you can't work. That's your standard. And in that standard, you have certain expectations. So in a proper workplace that works in a certain way, you might be expected to send your documents for a review when they're done. You might be expected to communicate before sending an email. I don't know what the expectations would be, but those are like pretty normal standards and expectations. But there is also, like I said, poor expectations and poor standards, where you would get in the workplace being like, no, it's okay. I don't need like a proper computer to work. I'm fine. Just like put me in this little dark corner. It's fine. No, don't pay me. Like, that's fine. I don't care. Like, and the expectation would be for yourself to put on yourself to be like extra kind to everybody, extra nice to everybody, when you don't receive any of that. So that's an example. And I made it work related to the best of my capacity, because we often see these terms in relationships. And I feel like it's easier to put an example in a workspace, because we can all agree that there is some kind of baseline, some kind of universal kind of needs in a workspace, and some needs that might just be unnecessary, like having someone to rub your feet every time you work. Let's take the work element out of it. What we can keep is that you might, as a person, have certain standards. Let's say you're not gonna talk and engage to someone if they're disrespectful to you. You're not expecting them to be respectful. What you do is that if you see that they're not, you disengage, because you know yourself to be worth much better, much more. Whereas having an expectation of people being respectful is being surprised when you come across disrespectful people and taking it personally and asking to yourself, like, why aren't people all respectful? And you might go all the way to explain to that person, like, listen, you are being disrespectful, blah, blah, blah. And this is why we say speak less, because a lot of the time, the people that are disrespectful to you, they can't hear you yet. Clearly, to be disrespectful to you, they do not value you that much. They see you as another person, maybe less than that. And it's not that your explanation to them isn't valid. It's just that sometimes they don't have the capacity to hear it properly, to understand it, and not just hear it. So this is why we associate having expectations in relationships to disappointment. The reason we associate expectations to disappointment is it's because we're expecting people to be the way that we need them to be, or we want them to be, and we are putting these expectations on the wrong person. So let's say that, back to like my work example, you're at work and your expectation is to always communicate before sending an email. You don't get at home to maybe your parents and ask them, can I send this email? It's not that the expectation isn't good anymore. It's just that it has its place. It requires a certain type of people, and it requires a certain context to be valid. And a lot of people, I hate to say it, but they suck. And it's not to be negative, it's just to acknowledge that if a lot of people suck, it means that you can't expect everyone to understand your expectations because they have different expectations, especially in relationships, especially in friendships, or just in communications, all in all. And to be fair, it's not anyone's fault specifically when we don't even address emotional intelligence in school, or how to behave around other people, or how to communicate how we feel, how to understand how we feel. We have a huge lack in these areas, you know? And so I feel like it comes from a good place, wanting people to be the best they can be the best humans they can be respectful, be kind. But the reality is that a lot of people simply are not. And you can't afford to be disappointed every time it happens, because you can control your energy. So that's my second point. Expectations, they're a little tricky when they're outside of a professional context, or a context that is clear and has a good rational foundation to it. But expectations when it comes to relationships, they're a little more tricky, because sometimes we're asking the wrong person all of the right things. And when we don't know how to communicate, what happens is that we wait for these things to happen, and we're thinking maybe it's going to happen, maybe it's going to happen. And because we don't know how to clearly communicate, which I don't blame you, it's like it's a real struggle out there, we remain with that misery in our hearts, and we're thinking like, why do they not do it? Like, how come they don't get me like that? Like, do I need to do something else? And sometimes you get in that inner battle of even questioning, like, am I asking for too much? Am I too much? And not only are you not asking directly, but also you put the blame on yourself. And like I said, a lot of people suck, so learn to value yourself and to understand who deserves your attention. Now, back to standards. Standards are the way you operate. So like I said, if someone disrespects you, you are not going to engage or talk back or get in that zone, because your standards are above that. It's the bare minimum for you. Like, if someone is being mean to you, they are already below you 100%. They're digging in the sand. They're below, way below. And your responsibility is to hold yourself accountable to your emotional maturity in that moment, and decide to not engage. Do not engage. That's when you respect your standards. And by doing a non-action, you're actually doing an action, which is respecting yourself. Truly, truly to the core. Now, in relationships, maybe your standards are you want someone that really knows what they want, and that doesn't take like 6 months to know what they want. Why? You gotta ask yourself why. Well, maybe it's because you know what you want pretty fast. And so you want someone, a partner that's gonna match that energy. Is it valid? Yes. Because if that doesn't happen, you might get insecure. You might start to think that you guys don't want the same things. You have a different personality type that really affects the dynamic of a relationship at the end of the day. And so your responsibility is to hold onto your standards and never lower them, because it's going to catch up to you. You might try to do the exception of like, for you, I will transgress my standards. But the reality is that at the end of it, you feel bad about yourself because you know that it does not allow you to be the best partner possible. And it's not a compromise that's worth making in the beginning of a relationship. You know, once you're in a relationship, like 6 months, like a year, of course, like do the compromises. There needs to be a lot of compromises, matter of fact. But this is how you understand what your standards are, okay? And like I said, the standards that you have, you don't just create them out of thin air. Like you heard this person talk about what a relationship should be, and then that became your standards. That's just not how it works, and you need to learn to think for yourself. A must. So realistically, your standards are the way that you already treat yourself. When you are alone, when no one is watching, when you're sick, when you're sad, when you're happy, the things that you allow yourself to do, the things that you allow yourself to want, those are your standards. Basically, the way you treat yourself already shows you the level of care, attention that you would want someone to have in your life. Because if someone enters your life, they must top that. Anything you're giving to yourself, if they're doing less, you're going to feel like you're in a parent situation, like you're taking care of them, or that they're a burden to you. Because every time they're there, you need to baby them, you need to think for them, you need to take care of them. And your quality of a life significantly drops because someone then completely relies on you, has no self-autonomy, self-efficacy, self-trust, self-love, and they're asking you to be all that. If you already know how to be good on your own, how to treat yourself, how to really love yourself and value yourself, then you are going to radiate that energy, that vibration. And the people that see that vibration understand that they must match it at least or top it to be around you. And that's how it works. When you get with people and they feel insecure around you and they let you know, like, hey, I feel insecure around you, like, those are cues that and I mean without you doing anything to make them feel insecure, okay? You just existing, you just having fun, and you including them makes them feel like they're being unmasked or seen in a light that's not good. Like, take it as a sign, like they just do not vibrate to your frequency, and that's not a bad thing. It's gonna happen. But this is a disease. You must surround yourself with people that are at least matching your vibration or higher. Because the people that are lower might feel intimidated by you, might resent you, might feel jealous of you, and those are levels of vibrations that are going to pull you into a hole of babying others and having a relationship in which you can't expand fully. You can only help others to expand. All of that to say that standards and expectations are two very different things. And I want you to know that most of the time we are disappointed when we have expectations, not because we have them, but because we're asking the wrong people to be something they're not. And we drink the poison, we make ourselves sad because how dare that they are not how we want them to be. Whereas standards is simply what's required. What do you need? What do you want to be engaging with someone? It's like your foundation, it's your baseline, it's your requirements. And your standards are created by the way you treat yourself, the way you talk to yourself, the way you see yourself. And since you create your standards for yourself, people feel that energy, they feel that vibration. So if you don't value yourself at all, what people are going to see is that they can walk all over you. And trust me, they will. That's the thing. They will walk all over you. Not because you're a bad person, not because you deserve that, but because some people just suck. It's very simple. And so your job is to see, how do you treat yourself? How do you talk to yourself? How do you show up for yourself? And which kind of people do you allow in your life? And if they are actually elevating your vibration, your frequency. I want you to think about this because that is so important in life. I know in school we talk about maths, we talk about art, we talk about history, we talk about science, but these are key foundational elements of your core identity and your personality that are going to allow you to succeed more, to have more meaningful relationships, to have a better understanding of yourself, and to get the treatment you deserve. So if you feel like you are not getting the relationships that you would want, the people in your life keep disappointing you, then I strongly suggest that you come back to this video as many times as you need and rewire your brain with the cozy sound of my voice. Now, since it's the end of the video, I'll just say I appreciate any comments that you guys leave. Liking the video, your engagement goes a long way. And thank you for my people over on Patreon for supporting the channel, as always. And I hope to see you soon.